Hey everybody, Jochen Heiden here, and today or tonight or whatever time it is you're watching this, um, I'm going to be going through my general strategy plan for the Hellsen game. So as far as I'm concerned, this turn is set and ready to go. So once this video's done, I'm going to send this this file over to Hellsen. But I kind of want to go over what the plan is here, what my intent is for this campaign, and how I want to play my initial few turns until I figure out what exactly he's going to do. So we can start with Hawaii. We're in a very unique situation that we have everything intact here. Okay, every ship is alive. Every aircraft is alive. So I'm going to take advantage of that right now. Since we got them, we're going to use them. I have all of the aircraft that I possibly can that makes sense training here in Hawaii with the eventuality of sending them overseas to other locations because I don't need them all here. We also are going to be using, initially, to clear out some of these subs, I'm going to be sending out a lot of ASW patrols here. As you can see, I have plenty of these going. And we're going to try to disperse some of these subs. I'm also using some aircraft for ASW patrol. Granted, my pilots aren't particularly good at it right now, but I do want to thin this out a bit so we can start moving things in and out of Pearl Harbor as we see fit. Short-term plan for the battleships, the standard type battleships, is to do nothing because they're absolutely just not useful to me right now. They're too slow, they burn too much fuel, and there's nowhere that I can employ them with proper air cover that they're going to be any good. Further down the line, I may want to use them as maybe like point defense type ships, so like break glass in case of emergency type ships. Elsewhere in the Pacific, where we're being threatened by an existential surface fleet, I can bust these guys out to make a Hail Mary, right? But for now, they're going to stay here. This is probably the last time you're going to see my carriers for a while. This is the Lexington and the Enterprise. I won't tell you where they're going because that's very secretive. But I will tell you this: wherever they're going in this game will be different than where they're going in the Lodric game. Because I did talk to Hellsen offline about some things about the Lodric game, so he knows where my carriers are at in that game. He won't know where they're going this time. These may go to the same place. These may not. Who knows? So moving up to Alaska, I'm going to be doing something similar that I did in my game, where I'm going to be building my sub base at Adak right away. So I've already got ships moving in the general direction of Adak to start transferring troops and supplies over here to build this up. And I'm going to do that from the get-go. I spent too much time building up Darch Harbor last time, and I didn't really need it. So I'm moving everything to Adak as soon as possible. All this stuff in Canada, I'm just kind of condensing it into places where it makes sense. And building up some bases to get a little more points out of these bases, because it's unlikely that he's going to invade up here. So I can get some free points from the bases as I build them up. As far as West Coast, I am going to be a little more cautious this time around because Hellsen's a very unpredictable guy and he could do any number of things. So I do know that a lot of these Japanese players like to go for Portland because a lot of ships are built there. So I am moving additional troops to Portland just in case he finds a way to invade here. One thing I am doing for now, for short term, is I am condensing all of my aircraft into just a few small places. So almost all of my aircraft for now are transferring to the eastern United States for training. Why is that? Because the pilots train much faster off map. Is that a bug? Is that intended? I don't know. But that's the reality of the situation. And I have proof from the Lodric game that they do in fact train faster. So even though a lot of these units are destined for service in the Pacific in the short term, I do want to get a little more polishing on them before I send them out, because in the Lodric game I was very quick to rush out planes and pilots to the Pacific, and that's fine, but they got there and they weren't very good. So I do want to spend a little more time training these pilots up to get a little more expertise on them before I send them out. I've also gone through and plussed up all the pilots on every squadron. If you see here, we have more pilots than we have planes, but that's fine because we train so much faster on the off-map base that we should be able to get more pilots in training faster. And that's something I did not do before. I want to get more pilots in training quicker so I have more of a pool to draw from when it gets time for me to use them. I am also setting up LA very similar to before. It's going to be my main hub for transporting. I've already got some convoys set up to go in different places. So I am condensing everything into LA for now. I think it's easier for me to control ASW work if we combine stuff here. Some people won't agree with me, but that's just how I want to do it for now. All the supply and all the fuel we need, all the aircraft, all the troops can all funnel down to LA because we've got an outstanding logistics trail here with the rail lines and everything else. So we'll have no, we won't run out of anything here at LA. Any ships that spawn in at Panama, with the exception of those Sims class destroyers that we're going to get, I'm going to send these ships up to East US. And from here, we'll use Eastern US to resupply Cape Town. Because that's entirely off-map movement there. So it can go pretty quick. We won't burn a lot of fuel doing it. So I'm going to be using Cape Town and East LA linked together. Okay, moving on to the South Pacific. We already got a plan in place down here. And basically, like the Lodric game, I am going to be building from the front back. So I do have a lot of assets going to Luganville and to Noumea right off the bat. Because it's very important that we have these as power projection earlier in the campaign than I have them right now with Lodric. I kind of waited till right now to do Luganville in that game. And I want to start earlier. So we're going to start building these up quicker. And once I'm satisfied that these are built up, we'll start daisy chaining backwards. But we're not building from the back front. We're building from the front back. It's served me well before. That's what I want to do again. Okay, so my plan for Port Moresby this time around is I am not going to invest nearly as much time and effort into trying to get ships and planes and troops into there as I did in the Lodric game, because I've lost probably 50, 60 ships due to carrier strikes and subs and you name it, trying to get stuff into Port Moresby, and for what? It was something I was doing as a matter of principle, but as a matter of tactics and strategy, it doesn't make a lot of sense. While it does give us a way to power project into Rabal, which he will take soon, it's so hard to keep this supplied, and it's so hard to keep troops in here when he can control this whole area. And if he were smart, he would just park his carriers right here and pick ships off as they come in. And there's nothing I can do about it for months. So I don't want to subject myself to the torment of losing 1 million ships trying to get into Port Moresby. We're going to be turtling up significantly more. Whatever's there is there. I'll move a little bit of troops in there to kind of rebuild the 8th Australian Division and maybe the Port Moresby Brigade, but that's about it. Nothing else makes sense to do. I will condense all these other units by seaplane into Port Moresby, and whatever's there is there. That being said, we can use cans. I've been corrected now. Apparently, it's not cairns or carns. Australians call it cans. Okay, so we're going to use cans, Cooktown, and Townsville, and we can bomb the ever-living crap out of Port Moresby from there. So I'm going to be investing heavily into these 3 spots early in the campaign and get them moving as fast as possible. And then from there, we can set up bombers, fighters, you name it, and just turn Port Moresby into mush if he does, in fact, take it. I won't beat him to Shortland Islands or to Tulagi or Guadalcanal, so I'm not even going to bother. And there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to stop from getting into Rabaul either, so we're not going to try. I'm writing this whole area off as dead, and we're going to build our line of defense here, and then from Espiritu Santo to New Caledonia and south. In Australia, my main logistics hubs are going to be Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, however they say it. But I am moving troops around quickly. A lot of them is going to go up here. We're going to reinforce all these units down through here. We're also going to build up Albany a lot more than before, so I have an alternate port. Actually, Esperance too. I'm building up Esperance, Albany, and Perth to be receivers for supplies coming into Australia from Cape Town. That way, I don't have Perth overly congested with ships every single turn. When I have multiple convoys coming in, I can redirect some to Albany and some to Esperance, and we can keep supplies flowing. I'm also going to be building up some of the big bases along the supply route because that will help move supply faster. They draw more supply per day, and they can help move more supply over to the East Coast where we'll need it more. I've already gone through. If you saw my live stream about a week ago, I've already got all these convoys set up, and most of these are heading back to the United States for logistics because I don't need all these APs and AKs in Australia right now. I need them in LA, and then I can bring stuff back this way. So I've got all those set up. So I'm really happy with the Australia setup. Tasmania, I'm clearing out everything that's not necessary here. All the engineer units are going to be relocating to mainland Australia, and we'll be using them to build up these bases over here. Okay, Dutch East Indies. I'm collapsing back as quickly as possible to a line of defense that's kind of along here, because these bases here will fall quickly, and I kind of want to reinforce Timor. And on Java, I'm going to be building up the Bandoeng fortress because it's got great terrain and it's good, easy to defend. So I'll probably be moving the bulk of my stuff there. And the nice thing about this here is that it can't be naval bombarded. And since it's ×3 multiplier terrain, his bombing efforts won't be as effective either because we've got good terrain to hide behind in the bombing. So while we won't be able to hold Surabaya and Batavia indefinitely, we can be a threat on Batavia and get tons of AV into here, and he'll have to keep a lot of troops on Java to keep us from moving out and around here and taking back Batavia and Surabaya if he's not careful. So we're just going to be a thorn in his side here at Bandoeng. All of these bases here are going to fall pretty quick to him, so I'm just doing what I can. I've shut down all of the refineries in the Dutch East Indies, so we're not making any more fuel. We can't stop the oil, but we can stop the fuel. And then I've got all of these units here just building forts, not base stuff, but fort stuff, just to burn supply, because I want to burn up as much stuff as I can before he gets here. Same thing in Sumatra. We're condensing into Palembang and up towards here near Medan. I'm going to be setting up a seaplane base in Siberut. And then we can keep our PBYs here and get good sightings on these guys for quite a while before he discovers that we're here. Okay. Also have a lot of mine ships going up right now. I'm going to be mining here at Tarakan and mining here at Marak, so he can't get subs through here. I'm also mining here and here and here, so that he can't get subs to here and block our retreat paths off without eating a bunch of mines doing it. So we're going to get as many mines going as quickly as we can to slow down his subs from cutting us off early on. Okay, in Singapore, we're going to lose this probably within a week or two because he came in super heavy at Mersing, and he's probably got more troops to unload. And the whole goal of that is he's going to go as fast as possible towards Singapore and take that. So then he has all these troops freed up to go straight for Burma. So here's my plan. Since I know Singapore's jacked anyway, I'm not going to bother keeping troops on there because my theory is if we turtle up in Singapore, when he comes across here and attacks us, it's going to be a shock attack because of crossing the ocean. And because he'll have so much power doing it, he'll win that. So I'm moving as many troops as I can over to Johor, Baru. And we're going to defend here because at least we have a little more defensibility here where we don't have it at Singapore. And we're going to lose it either way, but I think we can put up a better defense at Johor than we can at Singapore. The rest of the troops up in northern Malaya, central Malaya, I'm not even going to bother trying to get them down into Singapore because we will not be successful. He'll have an armored unit here in 3 days, and he'll cut off the rail line. So we're just going to be a nuisance. I'm going to fill up every single hex on this rail line that I possibly can so that he has to claw his way through every single hex if he wants to use the rail line to go north to Bangkok. And he will win that, but it will take him a lot longer to do it if we put up a defense like that. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to clog up the rail lines here and make it so he has got to fight for every hex to get through here. Because we're never going to hold Singapore anyway. For the ships in here, you see that attack. Most of these are not going to make it. I'm sorry to say. He's got a carrier task force here with naval strike enabled, and he's got a lot of heavy ships. And the whole goal of these is to come down here and cut all this off. So if we rescue any ships out of Singapore, I will be absolutely amazed. I really hope we do, but I'm not counting on it. So This will be a devastating first week, without question. We've already lost 71 ships, and we're probably going to lose most all of that here, most all that in Hong Kong. We've already lost the Boise over here. We lost everything in Manila. It's just going to be a miserable week. I wouldn't be surprised if we have 150 ship losses by the end of the first week of this campaign. And it's not, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's not due to my inability to play this game. He just cut us off and hit us really hard with the Kido Butai at Manila, and he's got all these ships here. So he already knows our moves better than I know my moves. So he's already positioned to swoop down here and cut us off to Singapore because he knows that's what we have to do. How do I defend against that? I can't. I don't have any control over stuff on turn 1 like he does. So we're just gonna have to eat it. My only hope is that I can rescue as many ships as I can out of Java, out of Borneo, and maybe out of Palembang. And maybe we can get some of these out, and we can get them down to Australia or to Cape Town. Moving up to Burma, I've decided in this campaign, I don't see me being able to hold Burma for very long. With as aggressive as he's been down south, he will get to Burma faster than I can get to Burma. And I don't want to be losing 200 ships trying to get troops into Rangoon. Remember when Lodrig blew up one of my troop convoys here? The casualties were relatively light, but the effect on my morale was very high. And I think with Hellsen, he's even better poised to do those types of things to me than even Lodrig was. So my intention this time is to just kind of keep whatever I've got in Rangoon. Maybe put up a good air battle here. But the second that I see troops really knocking on the doors, we're going to pull chocks on everything and try to escape as best we can. Rather than investing a lot of energy into Burma, I want to build a strong defense in India instead. A defensive line here and a defensive line here. Also reinforce Ceylon because I don't want him to take India. I have a feeling that Hellsen's going to either go for Australia or for India. So all the troops that would go into Burma are not going to go into Burma. I'm going to keep them in India. All the troops coming in from Heiden later in the campaign are going to go into India. And we're not even going to bother with Burma. I would love to keep Burma open as long as possible so we have supplies flowing into China that way. But it's just not something I think we can do long term without excessive amounts of loss. So we'll work with what we got here. Chinese troops are not going into Burma. They're going to stay in China. And whoever's here is who's here. And we will delay as fast as best we can. But I'm not going to put thousands of troops in here and risk dozens of ships to do it. For India, we're just going to get really strong in India. I'm going to start building up forts. I'm going to build up the bases. We're not sending a ton of Indian troops into Burma. We're going to keep them in India so we can defend here. We must win in India. This is a no-fail mission. If we lose India, this game is over. There's too many points at stake here. And I know that for a fact that Hellsen has beaten people taking India. And honestly, it makes even more sense to take India than it does Australia because Australia is so spread out. You have to go so far away to get to bases. But in India, you can still kind of walk to places, right? It's not a long travel to take nearby bases from Calcutta or take all these bases. You can reasonably walk these distances. So we need to hold India. So my plan in this campaign is to get strong in India and let Burma happen the way it happens. If he takes it fast, he takes it fast. But we're just not going to expend a lot of resources trying to keep it. So in China, I feel like for as well as we've done against Lodrik in China, I really feel like we can do even better against Hellsen. And here's why. Not because Hellsen's an inferior player, but Hellsen just has a lot less troops to work with now. That with the rules in place that we have, he has to pay political points to buy units in the Kwangtung army here in Manchukuo and Mongolia and send them down into China. In Lodrik's game, he could rail up everything as long as he doesn't deploy 8,000 AV. He could send thousands of arty pieces and tons of troops by rail and just blast us into oblivion. So Hellsen doesn't have that capability this time. So I still have the same troops I had before, but he won't have as many troops as Lodric has. So I feel like we can set up a great defense. And here's my plan. We're going to hold Wenchao for as long as possible. Why? It's a good base that makes its own supply. It can have a great airfield. It's on outstanding terrain, right? And I think we can be a bit of a thorn in his side and redirect a lot of his troops that be maybe heading towards the south or maybe even Changsha. And they'll have to be used down here. So we're going to grip as many troops and supplies into Wenchao as we can. And then we're just going to turtle up here for as long as possible and try to withstand the siege. And if he elects not to engage it heavily, then we possibly have a base to launch bombers out of and hit Shanghai, Nagasaki, Kagoshima, Takao, Pescadores without being at extended range if we ever want to bring B-17s to China. So if we can hold Wenchao, you know, anything's possible. If not, it'll be a good siege battle, and he'll take a lot of casualties doing it. The rest of the plan is to set up a perimeter just like this. Okay? And I'm also going to make sure I cover the back end here because he may actually try to come up this way and invade in this direction, unlike Lodric. So since that's a possibility, we'll just, we'll just do what we can here. We'll build our defensive line up through here. Okay. We're going to go ahead and pull out of Changchao and Luoyang right away and not even attempt to hold them because we can't. And we'll also get rid of Nanyang because we don't need it. And we'll build our forces here in this area just like we did against Lodric. And all these troops up here, we're going to pull them back down. And Langchao will be the northern edge of the defense line. So we're going to turtle up here just like I did with Lodric's game. But this time, we have a better chance of doing well because we've got just as many troops as we had before, but he's got less without paying a lot of political points. So I think we can be more effective in China than we were even in the other game. All right, so I guess the last couple things I'll talk about is logistics. So Abaddon is going to be my main fuel supply for all of India, and also resupplying Aden with fuel because we have a lot of ships that are coming out of there. I will also use Abaddon to fuel Ceylon as well. But we're just gonna be shuttling a lot of fuel back and forth between Abaddon and Karachi, and using these rail lines, we can distribute all these supplies and fuel all through India and have more than we'll ever need. And this is so far up. It's gonna be a bad day if he gets this far with his ships. So I think we can keep this supply lane open for a long time. So fuel comes in from Abaddon and troops and planes come in from Aden, and they're all going to dump into Karachi. From Cape Town, we'll be sending supplies primarily to Perth and the western side of Australia, and a little bit to maybe Bombay and Ceylon from Cape Town. So Cape Town will have tons of supply, and the fuel from Cape Town will be coming from eastern United States. Because Cape Town doesn't make that much fuel if you take a look at it. It only generates 250 a day, but it generates 2,000 supply. So it makes tons of supply, but only a little bit of fuel. So our fuel supplies for Cape Town that we'll be shipping into Australia will primarily be coming from eastern USA. As you can see, this absolutely ridiculous amount of fuel is generated and supplied per day. So we can keep Cape Town completely topped off with supply that way. So I think that's basically the plan here, guys. If you have any questions about the plan, come over to Discord. You can ask me there. Or you can post your questions here. But that's kind of what I'm thinking for this campaign. It's just unfortunately going to be a big turtle up situation, and me mitigating losses because I'm playing against a guy that's not going to give me any breaks, and he knows everything that we're doing because he's done it before. I don't know what else to say about that, but he knows our plan because he's done it before. So again, I'll do my very best to get out of here, but just no promises. One thing I didn't talk about here was the Philippines. In the Lodric game, I used a lot of PBY Catalinas to move troops around, pull troops off these islands, bring things back and forth, and I think I'm just wasting my time because Hellsen's going to take the Philippines whether I want him to or not. I can try to make it harder for him, but I can try to like turtle up here at Malay and Clark, and that's the plan again. Nice thing about what he did this time is he did not land south of Manila, so he didn't cut any of these troops off. So I will be able to get most all of these troops in here into Clark Field, and we'll have a much stronger defensive Clark Field than I had in the Lodric game. So it will be even harder for him to take it than it has been for Lodric to take. So we're going to hold at Clark Field again for all the reasons that I've mentioned in previous campaign. The terrain is just better. Jungle Rough versus Jungle Regular. And we'll just draw all the supply into Baton and Clark, and that's where we'll make our stand. We will eventually lose it all, but he'll take a lot of casualties doing it. And at first glance, it does appear that he's going a little softer into the Philippines than Lodric did. Lodric came in heavy. And we're not, and he's not. At least not right away. Eventually, we'll move more troops from like Takao. There's a lot of troops there. He'll move them south, but it didn't happen on turn 1. So I have time, I think, to move stuff south, and I'm going to try to do that. Obviously, the Keto Butai is here, so we're not going to try to get too cheeky with any crazy attacks, and the PBY bomber raids that I did against Lodric are not going to fly here with fighter cover in place and all that stuff. So I'm not playing any games with this guy. He means business, so we're just going to be very conservative, okay? No crazy tricks here. But we should have enough time to move these things into Clark. Okay, so now I'm really done. I always do this. I say I'm done. I give you an outro, and I'm like, oh, yeah, by the way. But, yeah. I'll talk more once I get the turn back and we review the turn file. And then we can continue talking about more strategy and take stock of what occurs on December 8th, because it's going to be messy. We're going to probably lose almost all the ships leaving Hong Kong. The rest of the stuff in Manila is done for. I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to get much out of here either. So, we'll have much to discuss on the next turn. But for now, that's the strat. If you got your questions, please ask them. And thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.